Here I am, out in the beauty again. It's been wet lately, but bright spells. Autumn is well underway. And despite the darkness around us, or maybe not everybody is feeling it, there is beauty, there is goodness, and there is truth. So we should get out into it, we should occupy ourselves with it. There's that should word. I think it's advisable, shall we say. I'm going to do my normal route in reverse, just for a change. Just trying to get back into the habit of getting out in the countryside regularly. It's a good way of sort of just getting a different perspective on things. I mean, I live in quite a nice city, but well, the centre's a little bit sort of not always that lovely. Dreadful buskers and people around that you don't necessarily want to have anything to do with. So getting out and away from the normal environment, I think is quite healthy. We can also do this, we just change our habits at home as well. Many people seem to spend their entire time scrolling through nonsense videos, and even when they're out with their children or they're out with friends, their mind is taken up with other matters. You don't even notice all this kind of thing. The sun's gone in a little bit now. It was a bit brighter earlier, to be honest. But I dare say it'll come back out. Who knows, may even rain on me, won't that be nice? But we need to acknowledge the good and the beautiful and the true, and also to exercise discernment in that direction. I mean, what maybe superficially appear to be pretty isn't necessarily beautiful. So we need to, I think we need to think about what we look at in a way, not just allow ourselves to go along like little machines. Like this camera, it just records everything uncritically, everything's recorded, but nothing is understood. A bit harder with one hand. So there are often some cattle out in that field, which is probably where cattle ought to be. I suppose they need to overwinter when it does get really cold. But then there are breeds that would survive. So there's can't remember what the name of it is. It's only just sort of occurred to me in this connection. It's with regard to what we view and what we watch. That if we, say, watch somebody performing a certain action, that on a very subtle level, our body will be mimicking that action on the level of, you know, neurology. And that if it comes to performing that action, we then have a slight head start. So, I mean, this is obviously an important survival thing. It's basically how we learn from somebody showing us something. And, you know, we're already building the connections we need in our nervous system in order to perform things. So perhaps we need to look at what we do view. Think of all the ghastly things or the totally stupid and irrelevant things that you may see in a day that on a subtle level you're like this camera is being imprinted on you, and yet you don't really even notice it. I mean, as I understand it, all that happens is all these digital little things will go to memory and the camera won't sort of know what's happened, it'll just regurgitate it as required. But we're not like that, we're not like the camera. We see something and it makes an impression on us, and it makes an impression on several levels. Okay, so I'm walking along here, it's got a little bit darker, and that possibly, only minutely, sort of affects my mood slightly, and perhaps affects how I think a bit as well. So if you're watching dire stuff, watching news, listening to talking heads basically, they're basically colonizing your mind in a certain way. So okay, here I am, I'm standing behind the camera, I can see the screen, I see what's ahead of me, and because I'm standing back I can think about it. Now this is perhaps how we need to tackle many of these things in our lives, that we watch the theatre out there, watch the drama, whatever it is, just see things, but our consciousness stands back slightly from it. So we don't instantly react to everything, or at least not on a sort of gross level. We have a bit of time, we have time to consider rather than simply react. And this is where the critical thinking comes in. You may listen to something and then you can just react and take it on board, or if you're in conversation with someone you may just stop and think about it, or you may reflect on it all later. Now obviously a certain amount of judgment is required in order to know when and how to do this, but that I think would sort of defines critical thinking, or it's certainly an aspect of critical thinking, that having seen or heard something, you then seek to understand it and process it, quite possibly by with an internal, I don't know what to call it, monologue or dialogue, quite honestly, because on the one hand you're talking to yourself, but sometimes it's almost like you're talking to somebody else. So I think this is an important aspect of life, and I think I'll just leave that video here so that it's one simple subject to be considered. Thank you for watching.